Hello, my name is Max Dombrowski, and I am doing my holistic development project on Native American reservations and a sustainable holistic plan to get them out of the anemic state of poverty that most of them are in, and hopefully fully sustain them. All right, we're going to start with their history. History and politics. Basically, Native Americans are believed to be descended of Eurasian peoples that migrated across the Bering and Arctic ice shelves around 32,000 BC. This is the most accepted theory, although there are other theories saying that they sailed over here at the end of the last ice age, and other theories saying that they went above the North Pole, like particularly the Inuits in like Alaska and Greenland. It's said to have migrated across massive ice shelves across the North Pole, but I digress. And the first contact with Europeans was made, contrary to popular belief, it was not with Columbus, but it was actually with Leif Erikson, and he and his Viking clan made a settlement in what they called Vinland, which is modern-day New Brunswick and Nova Scotia in eastern Canada, around 1100 AD. And contact was made again by Columbus in 1492 with the Arawak Indians in what's now Puerto Rico, and that's where the Columbian that's where the Columbian exchange started. Old world crops in exchange for new world crops, and guns and germs and steel. Basically, old world diseases such as smallpox, yellow fever, typhoid, and all the others were introduced to the American Indians who had no immunities, and it wiped out like 90% of their population, like within the first couple hundred years. And then, continued on besides missionary efforts to try and convert the Native Americans, there was also the Age of Empires, Age of Expansion, where the British, French, Spanish, and Dutch and the Portuguese tried expanding their empires into the New World. And part of that was the 7 Years' War, which was from 1756 to 1763. And how the Native Americans play in all this is the British and French allied with various tribes to get the edge over American Indians, who they were promised autonomy and to be left alone if they were successful. And same thing with the American Revolution. The British Crown, they promised to stop migration west of the Appalachians if they won the war, but Britain lost and the United States of America was born, and that was bad news for the Native Americans. And which brings us to 1831, where former Democratic President Andrew Jackson signed an executive order without consulting Congress, mind you, that forcibly relocated the American Indian tribes in states such as Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia to western territories such as Oklahoma and northern Texas. He did this without consulting Congress first, so that was not only immoral, but it was also illegal. And Jackson was never prosecuted for it, probably. And then going into more modern history, the Dawes Severalty Act of 1887, it basically gave the president the right to survey American Indian land and organize reservations through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or BIA. And obviously this created the system of Indian reservations that they've been living on from 1887 until today. And then another factor was the Great Society from 1963 until 1969. That's when programs like Medicare, Medicaid, WIC, TANF, all these different welfare programs were created, and among those was Bureau of Indian Education and Bureau of Indian Health, which were subsets of Bureau of Indian Affairs, and didn't really help much. And their culture and religion, like, I should note that today most of them are like agnostic and just don't care. Most of them don't believe in anything. But back before the Europeans arrived, most First Nation tribes had common themes. They had common cultural themes of twins, dualistic philosophy, good and evil live inside all of us, that sort of thing. And they had tricksters, the X factors in these stories of like good and evil, and animals taking on human roles, like the great turtle taking the Great Spirit's children, and obviously the Great Spirit and inanimate objects taking on lives of their own, like the sea and the lakes and the trees and the stones of the earth, things like that. And there are a plethora of stories throughout throughout Native American mythology and things like that. And then, you know, it's worth noting that most have a similar story of a man and woman having 5 sets of twins, 3 sets of boys and 2 sets of girls, and the sets of twins were sent away to populate parts of the earth. And then all stories, you know, all the stories, you know, have some sort of theme of communing with nature, which affects their views of not leaving nothing to waste. How many of you have seen Dances with Wolves? Just by a show of hands. I can't see your hands because I'm just a disembodied voice in the void. By void, I mean computer lab. Anywho, if you've seen Dances with Wolves, you've probably seen that one part where the Lakota are moving from one part of the prairie lands to another, and like whenever they're hunting buffalo, they don't leave anything to waste. Like they'll eat all the meat. Obviously, they'll take hides, you know, make clothes out of them, and then the bones, they use them as tools and everything. Like no part of it goes to waste, because that tribe in particular had such a respect for their environment. They believe that stewardship was important, and I tend to agree with that. Sorry, it's a little shaky. I'm just kind of shaky right now. And then some of the felt needs in that community are poverty, alcoholism, child abuse, single-parent households, drug abuse, destruction of the nuclear family, and all that horrible stuff. And things like food stamps aren't doing squat. If anything, I think they're making it worse, because I mean, if mom and kids are getting food stamps, then what's the point of having the dad in the picture? I mean, why should the dad provide for the family when he knows that the state is gonna do it anyhow? So there's just that just furthers the cycle of dependency and despair and generational poverty and things like that. And then drug abuse and alcoholism, you know, waste of cope, and then obviously kids get roped into the middle of all this, which is probably worst of all. And then here's my proposal for a holistic development plan. First up, raise leaders such as counselors and pastors within the tribe, and within all the tribes and everything. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because most tribes have a perception of Christians. You know, they're like, oh, Christians, you mean the same ones that took our land, the ones that made our ancestors march a trail of tears, the ones that killed and raped, killed our men, raped our women, and sold our children into I don't know if they sold their children into slavery, but they did some pretty horrible things to them. But you mean those people? I mean you can kind of see why they had that problem. But I'm not saying God isn't capable of miracles, amen. And then you raise up leaders and counselors and pastors and people like that within the tribe, then people will be able to be ministered where they're at, instead of having somebody who doesn't relate go in there and try and like, hey, this is how you need to live, And another thing that I think can really help is getting the federal government out of the way, because in their trying to help and everything, it's just made things, I think, a whole lot worse. I mean, poverty stayed pretty much the same. Drug abuse and alcoholism pretty much stayed the same. And the money that has been set aside for Native American tribes by the Supreme Court, like, the tribes will they'll either reject it or they'll take it and build casinos and profiteer off the expense of the people in their tribe. So get them out of the way. You stop all that money flow. And then lastly, I think you should let Indians develop their own land. Give it to the Indians. It's their land, for crying out loud. I mean, they were here long before any of us were, unless there are people in this class who have Native American ancestry. Then that probably doesn't apply to you. But I say just let them develop their own land. Seriously. If they can develop their own land, they can build businesses. If they build businesses, they put people to work. Put people to work, unemployment drops. Unemployment drops, local economy grows. People have money in their pocket, and that means fathers can work and support their families. Therefore, families stay together, and it's just a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win all around. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be easy at all, but it's manageable. I mean, it's worth a try, and And then these are my references. Thank you.